Hello, girls. So, from the last chapter, that is chapter 6 of APM, the three subtopics remaining are fashion marketing definition, the second subtopic, what does a fashion marketer do, pricing policies, and role of a merchandiser. So, first, all this consolidated is for 4 marks. Each can be asked for as a definition of 2 marks, and pricing strategies can be asked for 4 marks. So, to begin with, fashion marketing. So, the definition of fashion marketing. The goal of fashion marketing is to identify target customers and develop promotion strategies that encourage the targeted audience to buy a product. So again, I'll repeat it. What is the goal of fashion marketing is to first identify the target customers and develop the promotion strategies to encourage the targeted audience to buy a product. Every brand has a target audience, so your promotional strategies should be developed uh, in a proper manner to um, to uh, to help the consumers buy the product. So the second point which we are going to see is, what does a fashion marketer do? The first thing, he has to do some specific activities. Out of that, the first is market research and analysis. Obviously, a fashion marketer has to research the fashion trends and also study the consumer habits to best advertise to them. Now, studying consumer habits is how does the knowing about how the consumer selects his brand, how or which retailer he prefers to go, what is his perception about the brands, his preferences, his behavior, his reference group with whom he is interacting, the family reference. All these things are included in the consumer habits. This has to be studied by the marketer so that he can serve the consumer more perfectly. Now, the second thing which a fashion marketer does is brand design and development. Creating a consistent story and imagery for a brand builds consumer interest and trust in the brand. Now, every brand has to create a story. Uh, that story tells you everything about the brand, that why the brand exists. It is a statement about why the company or the brand exists. For example, if you take Vogue, the tagline for Vogue is Vogue Empower. In this, the video is made by a celebrity, Madhuri Dixit, where she says, लड़के रोते नहीं है. We teach to the society in a way that लड़के रोते नहीं है. But then she says that we should teach like लड़के रुलाते नहीं है, so that the harassment will be stopped. So this is the brand story which they have built. In the same way, if we take Flipkart, it is about Indian online brands. IKEA, it is improve your private life campaign. So every brand has its own story. So it is the role of a marketer to know about the brand design and development. Now the third thing what he does is develop and manage advertising campaigns. Now, creating advertising that matches with the target audience and planning the distribution of advertisement across advertisement platform is a key to successful advertising campaign. So, creating the advertising is simple, but that should match with your consumer audience is the most important part of this. And then planning the advertising campaign to reach it to the consumers to every part of the world. This is also important. Then the last one, that is pricing and distribution. So here, studying how products are selling and determining where and what price product should be sold may be a part of fashion marketers' duty. Means just pricing of product is not important. At what price those products are sold by the competitor in the market, and at what price your target audience is ready to buy the product. Studying all these things is also part of fashion marketers' duty. So we have seen overall four points a fashion marketer has to do. So I can sum up with that: pricing and distribution, develop and manage advertising campaign, brand design and development, and market research and analysis are the 4 points which a fashion marketer has to do. Now we are going to see the third subtopic, that is pricing policies. So a pricing strategy is a method used to establish the best price for a product or service. Finding out the best price for the product is pricing strategy. It helps you choose prices to maximize profit. Here you have to consider profit of the company also, and you have to also see the market demand for it and the competitors' price also. So there are different types of pricing policies. The first one is competition based pricing strategy. Now this pricing strategy focuses on existing market rate. Competition based, it can also be called as competitor based pricing policy. You have to study at what price the competitor is selling the product or service. Now, this is mostly used by businesses who compete in a highly saturated space. Now, the slight difference in price uh, may, may be a deciding factor for the consumers. Um, this type of pricing strategy can be called as competitor-based pricing strategy. So now, the second one is cost plus pricing strategy. Now, cost plus, first you have to decide how much production cost is required for your product, and then you have to add up the profit to this. This pricing strategy is generally used by fashion marketers or fashion manufacturers. They first calculate the production cost for the product, and then they add up to the profit which they intend to. But then you have to consider the market value also. You can't set it by your own. Uh, this is the second one. The third pricing strategy is high-low pricing strategy. This is generally depends on the product life cycle. A high-low pricing strategy is when a company initially sells the product at high price, but lowers that price when the product drops its novelty. Um, then discounts, clearance sections, and year-end sales are arranged. Now, this strategy is followed by many of the products. Now, the next one is hourly pricing strategy, which is a little bit opposite to project-based pricing strategy. In hourly pricing strategy, every hour is charged for. This can be used by fashion consultants, freelancers, contractors. But then in project-based strategy, the costing is based on the project which you are handling. As per the project, the charges are applied. Now the fourth one, that is skimming pricing strategy. Now skimming pricing strategy is when companies charge the highest possible price for a new product. Now this is just to pick out the cream of the market. That is, we can say, in the form of consumers picking out the leaders of the market and then charging for them. So the charges are high. As it is for cream market, the charges are always high. This is, we can say, technology products use these prices. Electronic products like iPhone or we can say Sony PlayStations, so all these technology-oriented products use this pricing strategy. Now the next one, that is penetration pricing strategy. Penetration pricing strategy is when companies enter in the market with an extremely low price, effectively for drawing the attention from the competitor. Now, penetration pricing isn't sustainable for long run, but then if you see, they grab the market to a large extent. The highest sale is there of their product, but the profit margin is low. Now, you can take a very good example of this, like Geo. They have grabbed the market to a largest extent initially. So, we have seen these pricing strategies. Um, to sum up with, we can say the last one, that is penetration pricing, second last skimming, then comes hourly pricing, and we can say project pricing, then high-low pricing strategy, then cost plus pricing, and competition-based pricing strategy. So now we are going to see the merchandising part of it. This is the last subtopic. So we can say that merchandising is a process of creating a merchandise. Merchandise means goods, you know very well. So what did I say? Merchandising is a process of creating a merchandise based on a particular demand. As per the demand, the merchandise is created, whereas marketing is a process of supplying this merchandise for the market. So there is difference between marketing and merchandising. I'll repeat again, merchandising is a process of creating a merchandise as per the particular demand, whereas marketing is a process of supplying this merchandise for the market. So we can see now the role of merchandiser involves many points, like now this the point you have to keep in mind is merchandisers work at different levels, like retail also, in export house also, and at wholesale also. So here we are discussing the role of merchandiser at export level. So he has to first study the fashion forecast, along with the designer. Then he has to get information about the customer profile. Now this information, if you take an order of a shirt, it includes right from fabric, which fabric it is, what is the size of the shirt, what is the measurement chart to be used, then what is the ratio in which the buyer needs the order. All this is getting information about the customer profile who is working in export house. Then sourcing of fabrics is also his job, whether the fabric is mill made, is it powerloom, handloom, woven, knitted, all these things has to be studied. Then sourcing of trimmings and labels is also one of his duty. Then placing indents for fabrics, trims, packaging material, and taking regular follow-up of it is one of the job. Then getting the pattern made from the sampling department. Then calculate the fabric consumption and cost. Then getting the approval of the sample from the buyer. This is utmost important. There are different types of samples also, that is that are used at the different stages of production. So after approval of the buyer, then comes the where if there are any corrections suggested, then getting the corrections done and getting the final approval of the buyer again, and then calculating the lead time. What is lead time? The time taken from the sample approval to the dispatch of merchandise can be called as lead time. So then scheduling the product, scheduling the production. This is also important. Then send the production sample to the buyer. Quality inspection of the merchandise. This is also important. Then arranging for dispatch, that is shipping, or any method of distribution, and then intimate the buyer about dispatchment and making proper arrangement for the payments. So we can say basically a merchandiser is a coordinator, one who liaises between buyer and apparel manufacturer to ensure quality merchandise at right delivery time. So this is how we have summed up with the sixth chapter now. Whatever questions you have about these three subtopics, you can ask on WhatsApp group. Thank you. Stay safe. Stay home.